So these are the companies again. If you want to see how they perform on the stock exchange, be sure to check that out. We are going to review FIRSTROCK Real Estate next in our stock highlight. So let's get on with that. All right. So FIRSTROCK Real Estate has two denominations on the stock exchange. There's a USD and there's a JMD. So there is some information that we're going to go through now that will comment on a little bit of both. So if you search for FIRSTROCK Real Estate, just be mindful that there are two of them. And so if you are interested in investing, you have to make a choice. If you don't have a USD trading account, then you'll need to sort that out with your brokerage firm, and they'll create that account for you. And then you'll be able to purchase the USD denominated shares. Otherwise, you are able to invest with a JMD account in the JMD shares. So FIRSTROCK Real Estate is a company that was registered in 2017 and began operations in 2019. And the main activities of the company are holding investments and controlling the operations of its subsidiaries. The company's core focus is real estate acquisition and development for rental or resale, and the acquisition of private equity investments for income generation and asset appreciation. The company's primary aim is to provide its shareholders with a tax-efficient vehicle offering an enhanced level of income, above average dividend yields, and preservation of capital through the diversification of assets. That was a mouthful, but you're seeing here similar to what we were saying before, where it's essentially going for real estate acquisition or development of rental properties, or they may purchase properties to resale, and from that income, that's where you're able to get value out of the investment. These are the companies in its subsidiaries, and together they form FIRSTROCK Group. All right. So the stock price within the last year has actually been down 21.7%. That's within the last 52 weeks, and would have been as high as about $12, as low as about $6, and is trading at around $9 right now at the point of this video. In terms of their audited financials that were released just about 3 weeks ago, we're seeing a decrease in revenues to negative 1.3 million US. Well, the statements are in USD, so that's a decrease of 115%. Their operating expenses actually decreased to 3.6 million, so they were able to save on their operating expenses. Their net profits were negative 3.4 million. That's a decrease of 184%. Their earnings per share, of course, with negative earnings will be negative 0.012 cents, and their stock price has actually appreciated 18.27%. That's the JMD shares since the start of this year. In terms of their balance sheet or statement of financial position, assets stand at 60.1 million USD, equity at 34.6. That's actually a decrease of about 4%. Liabilities have gone up by 6% to 25.5 million. And we see where cash flow from operations would have decreased from 3 million, from negative 3 million to about negative 7 million. Cash flow from investment activities were positive at 4.4 million. They actually liquidated some of their assets to be able to get some positive cash flow there. And cash flow from financing activities stood at 1.8 million, a decrease of 80%. In terms of the movement of the share price, as we mentioned, there are two denominations. So for this slide, you're going to see dual information. In terms of trading today, as at the point that we're doing this video, there is no trading today, and that's why the range is 0. That's actually for both sides. Both the JMD and the USD shares did not trade today. Market cap for the combined shares stand at 14.6 million USD. Shares outstanding 282 million shares. And the USD shares are up almost 12% year to date, and the JMD is up 18% year to date. So I wanted to have a look at their audited report. So it says here that, so this is the report from the chairman, mentions that, so it mentions a loss that we mentioned before, representing a decline of 6.9 million US over the prior year. It says here that the loss was mainly attributed to losses on the disposal of investment properties and their unrealized fair value losses, right? However, the company was able to reduce its expenses. We mentioned that before, representing a decline of 1.5 million US. So they would have saved on their operating expenses. And it says additionally, the company registered a share of profit from its investments in joint venture of US 1.6 million. Right, so that's a positive compared to how they would have finished overall. So it says these results were attributed to some softening in the property and financial investment market, resulting from high interest rate and costs associated with the execution of the company's portfolio rebalancing strategy. Right, high interest rates have somewhat curtailed the buoyancy in the demand for real estate. Something that I think is quite interesting, because we were wondering in general, just from some of the conversations I've seen and what we've been hearing about real estate for a while, we've seen a lot of properties, a lot of developments happening, and we were wondering when you'd see some sort of, I guess, curtail of demand for real estate, right? So it's interesting what we're seeing here, which has in turn impacted values, right? However, the company remains confident that this negative trend will be reversed once interest rates begin to decline. So what they're saying here is that they're counting on the reduction of interest rates to be able to positively impact the value of the assets, and maybe even the likelihood that properties will be able to rent better and they'll likely have more sales. The company will continue its strategy of rebalancing the portfolio by disposing of variable income and underperforming residential and commercial properties, and acquire fixed income commercial properties with strong tenants, such as the KFC acquisitions in Costa Rica that was announced recently, I believe. The rebalancing will see them being more heavily weighted in the Latin America region. And I thought this was interesting. I'd love to have an interview with the team at some point to understand their overall strategy. And of course, I'm going to be looking at future results to see how things improve for them. So it says the company is confident that this rebalancing and de-risking strategy will bear fruit through the execution of development projects for sale and or lease, and acquisition of strong commercial income producing properties through Latin America and the wider Caribbean region, several of which are far advanced in negotiations. These factors, along with an expected improvement in the macroeconomic environment, should bode well for the company, and most importantly, its shareholders in the short to medium term, right? So the main thing that we're getting from this is impacted by interest rates, impacted by the environment. And when I did a quick comparison of the other real estate companies, real estate stocks, and how they were performing, this was notably enough that I wanted to do a review on it. And of course, it's interesting to see how the other real estate stocks perform, how they're able to weather the storm, whether or not the challenges that impacted FIRSTROCK will impact them as well. And so I'm really thinking as to whether or not we should just do a comparison of all the companies. Of course, that's going to take some time. See how they're faring in terms of profitability, what their respective outlook is on the market, and what we'll see in terms of on the ground, in terms of whether or not we think properties are going to do well in this climate. I know personally for my real estate investments, we've actually found it hard to find a tenant for one of our rental properties. So I thought the market was just at a very weird place right now. When I speak to real estate agents, when I speak to persons who have real estate properties, whether they're selling it, whether they're using it for rental, it's just really interesting where the space is right now. of course, a lot of things are impacted by the state of the economy, and so real estate would be no different. So I said all of that to say, since our topic today is REITs and real estate investing, it's important that, again, tying it back to the real estate stocks are going to perform in line with how the underlying asset is performing. So I don't want you to miss that point. And so if you have real estate stocks in your portfolio, you really want to pay attention to how that company goes about making money, how they go about performing in this climate, and whether or not their strategy allows for them to continue to be profitable in this climate, right? Because it's not the same for everybody. And so you want to just choose carefully. Of course, as prices go down in terms of asset values, it could present an opportunity to buy. It's no different in terms of the stock market. So of course, not being financial advice, but I mean, this market does present its opportunities, all right? So let's finish out the review for FIRSTROCK. Their last dividend announcement was their last dividend payment was in December 2022. They paid a dividend of USD 0.0004 cents. That was their last dividend payment, and none has been announced since then.